Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today. Welcome to today's webinar. We have a very thorough presentation to get through, and I can't wait to dive in. For everyone on this call, I just want to give folks just a couple more minutes to join here. So if you could all let me know, I want to make sure that everyone is able to use the question box feature in the GoToWebinar panel. So while we give people another second to join here, I'd love for you to type into that question box, say hello, let me know where you're calling in from today. That'll essentially be your chat feature for today, so I'll be able to see all of your questions and responses in there, and I'll call out some of the folks here. So just type into that question box, say hello, let me know where you're calling in from. One of the best parts about these webinars is they bring together folks from all different corners of the world, and we're all here for that one common goal, which is to improve our marketing. For example, I'm located near Boston, Massachusetts in Salem, Mass. We have a ton of responses already coming in. We have Jennifer from Wayland, Mass. So hello, neighbor. Kimberly from Ohio. Hello, Madeline from Miami, Florida. Steve from Florida. George from Tallahassee, Florida. Kathy from Texas. We have Kelly from Vancouver, British Columbia. We have another Kelly from Rochester, New York. What a coincidence. Andrea from Whistler, Canada. Hello. Whitney from Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have some folks in from Arizona, Arkansas, Pennsylvania. Wow. Brianna from Calgary, Alberta. Lauren from Louisville, Kentucky. Amazing. So many folks I could call out here. Meredith from Atlanta. I wish I could pick out every single one of you. Thank you for participating in that. But it is pretty crazy. There weren't a lot of locations that I said more than once. So it's really nice to know that, no matter where you are, you're all kind of here for that same common goal. So thank you for joining. With that, we're going to get into a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. So just know that this webinar will be recorded. So you don't have to worry about taking notes or anything like that. The recording will be the recording along with a copy of the slides will be landing in your inbox later today. And you can also find all of our webinar recordings easily on the Local IQ and WordStream YouTube channels. Just navigate over to YouTube, type in Local IQ or WordStream, click on our channel. You'll find this recording here later today, as well as any of the recordings from past webinars you may have missed. Also, another reason why I had you all type into the question box to say hello is I want you to feel comfortable asking your questions throughout this presentation, and I'll be able to cover them as much as I can in the Q&A session at the end. If you've attended any of our past webinars, you know our Q&A sessions are a pretty in-depth, unique experience to get your questions answered in what feels like a one-on-one setting. So for everyone on this call, I just want to make sure that you're able to do that. And also, I just want to ensure that you are aware that it will be recorded. Again, that's a common question, and especially for these webinars that cover our benchmarks reports, we do them annually. We do these benchmarks reports annually, and it's a lot of data. It's going to fly by, so if it feels like a lot, that's okay. You'll have time with all of the slides afterwards. So great. For everyone on this call, I just want to also quickly cover who Local IQ is. Now, some of you might be totally new to Local IQ, and that's great. Welcome. Some of you might already be familiar with or even working with us, which is wonderful. And then some of you might be familiar with our legacy brands, WordStream and Reach Local. So for everyone on this call, I want you to understand that Local IQ is a fully integrated growth marketing platform that gives you the tools to prosper and thrive in the digital marketing space. And how we do that is we have proprietary data and optimizations automatically applied, informed by data from over 5.2 million campaigns that you can't find anywhere else. We also have local marketing experts ready to help you and work through all of the kinks within digital marketing within your industry. And we've also been in the digital marketing game for a very long time, and we leverage the power of AI to help you get ahead. So one thing that we're really proud about here at Local IQ that I want everyone to be aware of is we're super excited to share that we are a advertising partner with all the major advertising platforms. Now, this isn't just given to any marketing partner out there. We have to hit a rigorous set of requirements, improving campaign performance for our customers to showcase real growth. So we're really excited to share that we've delivered over 270 million leads for our customers, help them generate over nearly $16 billion in revenue, and have saved business owners, marketers, business administrators, and so on over nearly 140 million hours. So that's a lot of time saved. So we're really proud of that. And basically how we do it is we have this proprietary AI-powered technology that helps convert leads, married with the lead generation and digital marketing solutions that we help provide to you to help you have every step of your marketing funnel covered and help your prospective customers move through the buyer's journey, and then also retain those customers once you get them through the door. So we're just really focused on both short-term and long-term business growth. And we all kind of are a quick and easy one-stop shop for everything you might need under the digital marketing sun. So we help businesses start from scratch when it comes to finding new leads through tons of digital marketing channels. And then we also help those leads find you by helping you work on your online presence and reputation management. And then we have everything you need to turn those leads into customers with our customer-centered Power by Dash, which is our proprietary AI-powered solution suite. That includes AI lead management, SMS text messaging, in-depth reporting, chat support, and so on. A little bit about me, the person that's been talking to you for the past 10 minutes. Hello, it's wonderful to meet you all. My name is Susie. I'll be your webinar facilitator and host for the day. I'm a senior content marketing specialist over at Local IQ, where I write everything on anything that could cover digital marketing, from SEO to PPC to display ads, targeted email marketing, geo-targeting, anything and everything in between, pretty much any tactic, SEO, organic, social media, social ads. I've covered it. And how I got into this role was I previously was a digital marketing consultant over at WordStream, where I was coaching businesses and folks like many of the people on this call through the day-to-day best practices on platforms like Facebook ads, Google ads, and so on. So I took that real life experience and applied it to the educational content that I write and create today. And I am the author of this report, so I've been with this data since the very beginning and really worked to help bring it to life. And I hope I did a good job of that for you all today. A little fun fact about me is I'm based in near Boston, Massachusetts. I actually live in Salem, Massachusetts. So if anyone has their favorite holiday as Halloween or is interested in the Salem witch trials, that's a huge part of the history here. And I'm kind of right in the thick of it, which is kind of an exciting fun fact. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, or X as we call it now. I do share out exciting reports that I've done, articles that advertisers should be aware of, and so on. A common question we get asked on these webinars is, where can you learn more about the topics we cover here? Where can you learn more about the solutions that Local IQ provides, and so on? Definitely navigate over to the Local IQ and WordStream blogs. We cover everything we cover on these webinars in depth on our blog. So if you ever need a little bit more time with any of the topics, you can find an article covering that there and take your time with it. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. You can find both WordStream and Local IQ on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X, and YouTube. And like I mentioned, and I'm going to reiterate this throughout the webinar, especially on this one, because the slides are so data heavy. There's a lot of information in this presentation, and you'll likely want to take more than the hour that we have today to cover it. So feel free to navigate over to the Local IQ or WordStream YouTube channels to check out the recording of this webinar later today, or any of our past webinars too. And again, just a reminder that this will be recorded and you'll get the materials in your inbox later today. You'll also see a copy of the slides attached as well. So you'll again have plenty of time to dig into all of the data that we cover, because it will be a lot, which I am aware of. But we're going to go through it all together. I'm going to help guide you through it. And again, you can easily find the full length report on our WordStream and Local IQ websites as well. So if you've attended any of our past webinars, you know I love to keep our attendees on their toes. So I'd love to warm you all up to this topic. Just do a quick pulse check. Let me know in that question box how you're feeling about your 2025 marketing so far. Do you feel like the plan has gone accordingly? Do you feel totally new to some of the channels that you've tried? Are you a seasoned veteran and things are crushing it? Do you have specific issues that you're running into? I always like to know that, just kind of so I can tailor the content, and I'll go ahead and call out any of the responses that we get here. So go ahead and type into that question box. Let me know how you're feeling about your current 2025 marketing plans, because we're talking about 2025 data today. And tons of responses already coming in. Many people talking about struggling with lead quality. Definitely a concern. Chris S said that Q1 was pretty good. We love to hear that, love to see it. That's great. Some folks are saying totally new. They're not convinced that their search ads are working completely how they should be. Totally understandable. Kathy says not well. Google has suspended some of her, or possibly all of her account. Definitely understandable. Scott says that he's feeling like it's not very effective. William says seems like return on ad spend and lead quality has decreased. Veronica says she could be doing much better. Janelle says she's exploring streaming audio more than previous years. Totally fair. Bobby says that Google is kicking their butts. Definitely understandable. Paula says that she's totally new to marketing, and that's fair too. Brittany says she's switching her target market and her value propositions. So that's kind of completely changed for them. Deborah says she's just starting out and have a lot to learn. Definitely understandable. So if you've noticed, none of those responses, and I wish I could call out every single one. Thank you for participating in that. And I do read every single one, even though we don't have time to call out everyone. But I will say, if you've noticed, not every response there did I call out was exactly the same. Everyone has different perspectives, different levels of where they're coming from. So while I am going to talk about, general best practices throughout this webinar, think about how you could be tailoring these ideas and tips to your unique situation. And I'm going to try and tailor this to no matter what level you're at. So whether you're totally new or you're a seasoned vet, like some of those folks that did type in with specific, questions or specific concerns, I'll try and meet you wherever you're at. And it's totally okay. There are no two business marketing plans or Google Ads accounts are going to look the same ever, and that's okay. So we're going to dig into the big picture of the data, and then we'll also go into search ads performance by metric and by section. And then we'll cover some of the main trends and takeaways. And I'll leave you all with some thought starters. And again, if we'll try and cover as many questions as we can in the last few minutes for that Q&A session. So let's just first cover the overall numbers here. I'll try and take my time as much as I can on the slides that are pretty data heavy. So I will be talking through some concepts so I can give you all a few seconds here to find your industry or the data that you care about. So let's just take a quick look at the overall averages here. And through that, while you take in these overall averages, and again, no matter, I know we're all going to be thinking about our own account performance while we're looking at this. And don't panic if your account performance does not look like this, right? So if you're way off or way too, maybe you feel too close to what the averages are, however you're feeling, taking in these first initial overall averages, just say I will give you tips and give an industry breakdown, and it might vary depending on your industry. But I do want to run through with you all how we gathered this data so you understand what we're looking at here throughout this hour. So the data is pulled from over 16,000 local IQ customer search advertising campaigns running from April 2024 through March 2025. And basically, our proprietary platform dynamically shifts budgets between search channels on a campaign by campaign basis. So in aggregate, approximately 80 to 85% of budget is allocated to Google and 15 to 20% to Microsoft. So we do consider these search ad benchmarks, so it can be all encompassing of whether you're running on Microsoft ads or Google ads. It contains data from both. And metrics include average cost per click, average click-through rate, cost per lead, and average conversion rate as well as year-over-year changes, which you can see the overalls here. And again, I'm going to go into this pretty in depth. So just some overall trends and observations. Search advertising costs have been increasing year over year for the last 5 years, and our latest data shows that this trend is continuing. However, cost per lead did not increase as drastically in 2025 as it did from 2023 to 2024, suggesting a little more stability in the paid ad space, fingers crossed, after an extremely volatile year for organic rankings. If anyone has been working in search engine optimization or the organic version of search marketing or the free version here. So overall, average click-through rate increased slightly by just 3.74%, but when broken down by industry, just over half of industries saw a decrease in click-through rate year over year, while 48% saw either stable or increased click-through rates. So this is a departure from our findings in the last 2 years, where click-through rate increased pretty significantly for many industries. Google and other search engines have been continuously optimizing ad placements to better blend in with organic results. While they may have done all the optimizations they can do for now, this speaks to increased costs and lower click-through rates for 52% of industries. Moving on to some of the other overall year-over-year changes in averages. So cost per click increased for 87% of industries. Some industries like education and instruction, beauty and personal care saw substantial increases over 40% in cost per click. This is in line with our data from last year, where we saw cost per click increase for 86% of industries, so not a major change in that trend. The continuing increase in cost is likely due to crowded and unstable search engine results page conditions, as well as increased competition, right? So meanwhile, though, conversion rate also increased for 65% of industries. So it's really not all bad news. 15 out of 23 industries we looked at saw increases in conversion rates year over year. This comes after a decrease for most industries last year. So some industries like sports and recreation, education and instruction saw large increases, over 40%. It's encouraging to know that despite rising costs, search ads are still effective at driving leads for businesses. Now, this could be due, again, to maybe like a more stable economy throughout 2024. Of course, our 2026 annual benchmarks will tell the story for 2025, or moving on for the remainder of the year here. Lastly, the money metric that we all care about, cost per lead, did increase for 13 out of 23 industries, although the average increase was only around 5% year over year, so noticeably lower than last year's 25% average increase. However, some industries did see significant decreases too. That's including career and employment, arts and entertainment, and an increase in cost per lead isn't surprising, given lower click-through rates in those industries and increased cost per click. So again, just kind of looking at our industries most impacted here. Now, again, if you're in this industry, do not panic. I will break down the data even more and give you more tips throughout this webinar. And if you're not in these industries, also don't panic. I have many more industries to cover in the metric by metric slides. And this is a good opportunity for me to also call out to everyone on this call, because this comes up a lot when I cover the benchmarks, is I'm kind of in the super niche sub industry. I don't feel like I fit into any of these categories. Totally valid, right? Every business is unique and every offering is unique. And even if you're fitting into one of these categories, you obviously have a very more specific niche offering, specific sub industry or vertical that you might identify a little bit closer to. My advice while I'm going through this is just go with whatever is closest to the industry that you would self-identify with. With that being said, the industries that saw the highest increases in cost per lead include beauty and personal care, education and instruction, and apparel and fashion and jewelry. And now the three industries with the largest decreases in cost per lead were career and employment, arts and entertainment, and automotive repair, services, and parts. So that's overall, the overarching. Now let's get into that metric by metric performance by vertical. So let's go ahead here and we'll start off with our click-through rate. Now, again, I'm going to try and take as much time as I can with each of these slides so you all have a second to find your industry in here and, just take that in. while click-through rate isn't necessarily a money metric, right, that ties back directly to your spend. It doesn't, right? It's still important to your overall campaign health and ROI. It tells you how clickable your ads are, which you want to prioritize when you're trying to pull potential customers from that busy SERP. So I think a lot of folks can overlook click-through rate, but I actually think it's really telling into your overall Google Ads health and performance. Now, the average click-through rate in Google Ads in 2025 is 6.66%. The industries, as I called out, with the highest average click-through rates were arts and entertainment at 13%, sports and recreation at 9%, shopping, collectibles, and gifts at all nearly 9% there. And then on the opposite end, industries with the lowest average click-through rates were dentists and dental services at 5.44%, automotive repair services and parts at 5.56%, as well as business services at 5.56%. While the overall average click-through rate increased year over year, which is good, the industries that saw the biggest decreases year over year were beauty and personal care, down 15.41%, travel, which was also down about 14%, and restaurants and food down nearly 13%. In contrast, the industries that saw the highest increases year over year included shopping, collectibles, and gifts, up 14.07%, home and home improvement up nearly 14%, and attorneys and legal services up nearly 13%. So the overall average click-through rate across all industries, again, increased 3.74% year over year. We think that there could be a few SERP factors at play as to why click-through rate increased. And again, I would love to call out a quote here from my director, our director here over at Local IQ and director of content marketing. Now, she had mentioned that click-through rates have been increasing year over year for the last 5 years. And that's largely driven by new ad features. Ads are a lot more clickable now, and SERP changes too. So there's larger ads, more ads above the fold, and ads are blending more and more with organic results, which might be making them a little more clickable. So shout out to Elisa for adding in those thoughts there. Always an honor to feature her. Now, some other thoughts here as you're considering your click-through rates. Ads, again, like I mentioned, are looking more like organic results than ever before. Do you remember when ads used to look like that green and purple and yellow mess that's on the screen that's showing that old ad there? Ads are looking much cleaner, much more organic, and users may be more likely to click on them. Aside from the sponsor flag at the top of those ads that we're currently seeing on the SERP, there's not much differentiating them from the typical organic result. We suspect that beauty and personal care saw the biggest decline in average click-through rate year over year because competition has significantly increased in that industry. So that's thanks to the emergence of online shopping platforms like TikTok shops, Amazon, and more. That's just growing and growing, right? So it's easier than ever for new beauty brands to pop up. And in fact, social and e-commerce sales drove more than 50% of overall beauty sales globally. And although potential shoppers may not be clicking as frequently on beauty brands in search ads, businesses in this industry should run Google ads that build brand awareness and drive users to online shops. So again, if you feel like your click-through rate is kind of rocky, maybe saw a decrease is lower no matter what industry you're in, keep in mind that just because you're not pulling those clicks doesn't mean that your Google ads aren't effective. It could still be driving awareness and leading people to find your business and click to your website in other channels, which I'll talk about a little bit more here as we go on. So if you feel like your click-through rate isn't hitting, and that's totally okay, some tips to improve your click-through rate are to, of course, fine-tune your target, your keyword research. And actually, luckily, our technology automatically optimizes keyword lists for our customers for them. So you don't necessarily always have to worry about that. We're constantly optimizing your keyword list and suggesting keywords to add in, or potentially automatically negating out terms that you don't want to show for too. To again, make sure that you're showing for the right audience and getting those clicks, those audience members that are more likely to click. Now, there are two core problems at the root of any low click-through rate, targeting and ad copy or creative. To start, if you're not hitting the right audience members at the right time, they'll be less likely to click on your ad, which is why I said it's so important to focus on your keywords. Now, as for creating compelling ads, be sure you're taking advantage of ad content and ad assets like site links, image assets, and more to make your ads more clickable, enticing, eye-catching. If you don't have bandwidth to refresh your ads often, try leaning into AI tools to help you whip up new lines of ad copy or unique creative assets. For example, we have a free Google Ads AI copy tool over on the Local IQ site that takes you less than a minute, and you can get automatic copy and paste headlines and descriptions for your ads if you need to refresh them ever. Moving on to average cost per click here. Now, I did want to call out, so click-through rate and cost per click go hand in hand in Google Ads. If you're getting a high click-through rate and high cost per click, of course, you're going to spend your budget faster. So that's why CPC is so dependent on factors such as your bidding strategy, industry competition, and more. Now, remember, the average cost per click in Google Ads overall in 2025 is $5.26. However, the industries that saw the lowest average cost per click below that included arts and entertainment at $1.60, restaurants and food at $2.05, and travel at $2.12. Meanwhile, the industries that saw the highest average cost per click were attorneys and legal services at $8.58, dentists and dental services, and home improvement were both at $7.85, and education and instruction at $6.23. It's not surprising to see these industries on the higher end of the CPC spectrum. Those types of industries typically have higher competition keywords, and clicks can yield higher purchase values for these types of businesses. And I'll get into that a little bit deeper on the next couple of slides here. But year over year, the industries with the lowest average cost per click or the biggest decreases in cost per click were arts and entertainment, down 6.98%, restaurants and food down 5.96%, and attorneys and legal services down 4.03%. On the other hand, beauty and personal care the average cost per click was up in that industry at 60%. Followed by education and instruction, which was up 41.91%, and shopping, collectibles, and gifts up 33%. The overall average cost per click in Google Ads across all industries increased by 12.88%. Now, again, industry education and instruction seeing one of the biggest increases in cost per click year over year could indicate a general lull in the industry. For example, many education institutions, including both higher education and K through 12 schools, are bracing for a looming enrollment cliff. It's projected that the average number of high school graduates per year will decrease by 10.7% by 2037, and over a third of U.S. adults report having little to no confidence in higher education. Now, of course, there will always be opportunities for education-based businesses and organizations to tap into their markets via search ads. So I'm not saying throw out Google Ads. However, these trends indicate that the hard-to-come-by clicks will be of higher value and come with higher associated costs. So remember when I'm talking about cost per click here, like it could be worth it to have a high cost per click. So I don't want a high cost per click to scare any advertiser on this call away. It's totally normal to feel like your cost per click is high sometimes. It's almost inevitable at some point, especially like with most industries. Almost nearly any industry is going to have some level of competition that's going to drive up my cost per click. So if you're in an industry like education and instruction where you saw, a higher cost per click than you expected, higher cost per click than you're currently getting, or you saw big increases year over year in your industry, that might just mean that those clicks are of more value. The more valuable a click can be, or like the longer the sales cycle, things like that, which can factor into the competition of a click, can drive up those costs, but again, it might be worth it. For example, if a click is more likely to convert, of course, it's going to be more value, and it might be worth that higher cost per click because it'll get you the conversions that you want. So you really got to just think about your goals there. Now, there are ways to lower your cost per click, of course. And you always want to keep your Google Ads costs low, and the lower your cost per click, of course, the better, right? Since that means you're spending less overall and can inherently lower your cost per lead. Of course, those are correlated, which I'll get into cost per lead shortly. Now, you can follow all the best practices available to lower your cost per click in Google Ads, but some factors like industry competition are out of your control. So for example, Google Ads recently updated its unfair advantage policy, which we cover on the WordStream blog, and now allows the same brand to serve multiple ads in different locations on the search engine results page, which means that cost could drive up even more because, of course, more competition, more domination from potential businesses to cover the SERP. In this case, it's best to master campaign basics to ensure your landing pages, keywords, and ads are all tightly aligned to increase quality score and in turn lower your cost per click. Of course, quality score is going to help, lower that cost per click. Additionally, your bidding strategy could have an impact on your cost per click. So for example, if you've chosen an automated smart bidding strategy that's optimizing for conversions over clicks, Google's machine learning is going to bid higher for queries that are more likely to convert, even if they're more competitive and expensive. So again, just be thinking here about like how Google also has a job to do when it's serving your ad, and that's why you might be seeing the cost per clicks that you're seeing. So for example, Google is willing to sacrifice how much it's going to get from a click if it's going to means it's going to serve a really great ad to the user. So Google's is always trying to balance like user experience versus, of course, ad revenue, right? So if you're serving a really high quality, high intent ad that like matches that search query perfectly, Google has no choice but to serve it, and you can get away with a little bit of a lower cost per click, or like you can offer a little bit of a lower bid for that placement. Versus if your ad is a little bit of lower quality, not 100% relevant, maybe it leads to a landing page that isn't totally optimized, then Google's going to charge you more to get on that SERP or to show on that search engine results page. So I know it can feel repetitive to go back to the basics, go back to the fundamentals, but that's really what's going to make an impact to your cost per click here. Moving on to conversion rate, our third of four metrics that we covered in this report. Conversion rate, of course, is crucial in your PPC metrics reporting because it helps you gauge your search ad performance, and it proves how well your ads are equating to real leads or sales, right? So a high conversion rate indicates that your ads are showing to interested potential customers with ad copy and creative that's compelling enough to hook them in, and that your landing page is optimized for the buyer's journey. Now, the overall average conversion rate in Google Ads in 2025 is 7.52%. The industry is with the best average conversion rates were automotive repair services and parts at nearly 15%, animals and pets at 13%, and physicians and surgeons at nearly 12%. In contrast, the industries with the lowest average conversion rates were finance and insurance at 2.55%, furniture at 2.73%, and real estate at 3.28%. Now, the industries that saw the biggest increases were year over year in conversion rate were education and instruction, up 43.87%, sports and recreation, up 42.43%, and apparel and fashion and jewelry, up 14.69%. Meanwhile, some industries did see a drop in conversion rate year over year, including career and employment, down 23%, restaurants and food down nearly 19%, and home improvement down nearly 15%. Now, despite rising costs, average conversion rate did increase 6.84% year over year, which reinforces the effectiveness of search ads in driving leads for businesses. Although this could be the result of a more stable economy and cooling inflation over the last year, market uncertainty has returned in this coming year. So we're curious to see how conversion rates will change throughout the year, which I had alluded to earlier. But again, I would just use this as a reminder. If you were one of the industries that I called out that maybe saw poorer performance in cost per click, or click-through rate, or potentially you aren't happy with how your performance is compared to these benchmarks, remember that while you might see higher cost per click or lower click-through rate, we are typically seeing higher conversion rates overall, which is a really good sign. And I'll talk a little bit more about why we might be seeing that in the next few slides. So while it might seem counterintuitive at trying to improve your conversion rates, you need to address a low conversion rate, you'll have to first address your click-through rates and your cost per click, right? So they're all related. For instance, if you're getting less clicks at a higher cost, it'll be more difficult to maintain a high conversion rate as your budget stretches to cover what are likely low intent clicks, right? So remember, a click is half the battle when it comes to getting a conversion. If you want to squeeze more out of your conversion rates and your click-through rates and if you want to squeeze more out of your conversion rates and your click-through rates and your cost per click are already maximized, then you may want to consider new conversion actions to test on your landing pages to make it easier for visitors to take action on your site. So it's all going to come down to things like your landing page optimization, as well as other marketing channels that are supplementing your ads. So other marketing channels can also help support your Google Ads conversion rates optimization efforts, as your social media accounts, for example, might inspire potential customers to search for your business online and so on. So again, you might not be able to always escape a low conversion rate because of things like industry competition and so on. But again, if you're focusing on those foundations, prioritizing your quality score once again, and testing different bidding strategies, again, to just kind of stretch that budget, right? So you want to try and get as many clicks as possible to get conversions, right? If you're not getting any clicks, then of course your conversion rate is going to be down because no one even has a chance to get to your landing page to convert. So it is really a balance there, and I know it can be difficult, but again, that's why we're here to help. If it was 100% easy, we wouldn't be here on this webinar, right? So lastly, everybody's favorite metric, cost per lead, your money metric here. Well, you may want to consider all your available metrics when it comes to evaluating your PPC reporting, and you should. Cost per lead is usually the one that gets specific attention, right? It's that money metric for many advertisers because it defines the bang for your buck. Cost per lead, also referred to as cost per conversion, cost per action, cost per acquisition, however you're familiar with it. It can indicate how effective your campaigns are at delivering marketing ROI, or return on investment here. It calculates how much you're spending for a conversion on average, right? So the average cost per lead in Google Ads in 2025 is $70.11. The industry with the lowest average cost per lead was automotive repair services and parts, with an average cost per lead of $28.50. Now, meanwhile, the industry that followed that was restaurants and food, and arts and entertainment, which both had a CPL of $30.27, and animals and pets with a cost per lead of $31.82. So those are some of the lower end. Some of the higher end, attorneys and legal services had a cost per lead of $131.63, business services at $103.54, and furniture at $121.51. So we definitely have big differences on either end of the spectrum here. But again, just remember, it is kind of dependent on your own unique situations, and these benchmarks are really meant to be a guideline, right? So if we're looking at cost per lead year over year, the industries that saw the biggest increases in cost per lead year over year were career and employment, saw a big drop at 46.74%, as well as animals and pets saw a little bit of a drop year over year too, down 8.59%, along with arts and entertainment down 32.28%. Now, it's important to keep in mind the value of a lead. While we're talking about cost per lead, there's a whole nother component of your cost per lead metrics in your lead tracking and reporting called value tracking and conversion value tracking. So it's important to keep in mind the value of lead for each type of business. For example, a business service lead could equate to a larger, higher value purchase. So yeah, their cost per lead is going to be a little bit higher because there's more at stake when they get a lead. And that's why there's more competition. That's why the keywords are more expensive, and so on and so on. And again, I don't say this to discourage anyone in that particular industry or any of the industries where they feel like their cost per lead is high. And I think honestly, I feel like everyone on this call, can kind of feel sometimes like there's always room for improvement. My cost per lead always seems high, or my cost per click always seems high. It's like, yeah, we're all putting money behind these campaigns. Of course, it's your hard-earned money that like you're putting into these ads. Yes, you want it to be as low as possible. If we could all get our cost per lead down to $1 and our cost per click down to a penny, of course, anyone in any industry would love that. But that's just not the reality. And that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not effective. It absolutely 100% is. It's all part of just a much bigger marketing plan across many different channels. But of course, we want to lower that cost per lead. And if you're feeling like your average cost per lead isn't up to par with your industry average, there are countless options for how you can work to lower it. So keep in mind too that fluctuations and variations in average cost per lead are also normal. So at some parts of the year, you might think your cost per lead is crushing it, and then other parts of the year, you're scraping by with your cost per lead. That's totally fine and normal too. And not only that, but your cost per lead data is going to be dependent on how you track and assign values to your conversion actions. And I'll touch on this in just one second, but another note is to remember that it also is beneficial to evaluate your other marketing platforms in tandem with your search ads. So to see how you could bring down costs across the board and work towards your business's bottom line. So I kind of alluded to that on the last slide, but again, it's about, how your search ads are helping your overall cause, your overall goal of getting more customers, getting more sales, getting your business out there more. It's important, and it's all part of this bigger plan that I want everyone to be considering here. But I love to talk about this, so I will touch on this for a second here. A big thing that I think people forget when it comes to conversion metrics or cost metrics and cost per lead metrics is how much their conversion tracking really impacts what they're going to see in their reporting, right? You can track whatever you want as a conversion, basically, right? So I could track button clicks, and I could track, um, video views on my landing page, whatever it is, as conversions. And obviously, those quick, easy conversion actions are going to get done a lot faster. So if I'm racking up all these conversions, then yeah, duh, my cost per lead is going to go down because it's taking into account how much I'm spending versus how many conversions I'm getting. And my conversion metrics are inflated, depending on who you're asking. If it's a conversion to you, it's a conversion. But if you have a ton of conversion actions, then yeah, it's going to inflate that and make your cost per lead seem lower than it might actually be, even though those actions aren't actually equating to real sales or leads. I'm sure they're equating to meaningful actions and moving customers through the funnel. And I'm not saying, it's going to be dependent on each unique, business need and business structure. It's totally normal and fine to track a ton of conversions, but just keep in mind that's what's going to alter your cost per lead reporting and metrics. On the opposite end, I've worked with plenty of businesses that have one like 2-3 page form that's like their only conversion action, and that's all they're tracking. And that's fine too. If that's my one conversion action, that's the only thing that equates to real sales or leads for me, that's the only source of truth to how these ads are working, that's fine. But it's going to take a lot more to get conversions. And of course, your cost per lead is going to seem super high, because even if you're getting those clicks, not everyone is going to make it all the way through that form. So you always kind of want to be thinking of like, all right, what are the odds that someone is going to look up this keyword, my ad is going to get served, they're going to click on my ad, and they're going to convert? That's obviously going to alter your cost per lead performance. So when you assign maybe like values to your different actions, let's say maybe I'm an e-commerce business, and one person checking out with a cart of $15 isn't of as much value of a person checking out with a cart of $50, then those different conversion values can be factored into your cost per lead, so you can get a much clearer view of how your conversions are actually equating to real sales and leads. And same for your search ads overall and your cost per lead overall. And we help folks do that, because adding values to conversion tracking is a lot easier said than done, which I understand. This is all very technical. And I've been in the digital marketing game for a long time. And even for someone that does it over 40 hours a work week every week for many years now is what I've been doing. And even for me, it's definitely a lot. It's a lot for anyone, and that's okay. So moving on to what all of these metrics mean for you and how you can pull out some of these key takeaways and trends from these. Now, I want you to start keeping an eye on the SERP a little bit more. We know that Google has already been looking for additional ways to squeeze money out of the SERP, like reversing a long-held rule, but from keeping businesses from running multiple ads on the SERP. I talked about that a little bit earlier. So we expect Google to also introduce more ad options within AI overviews to further monetize the search engine results page. Also, diversifying your search ad strategy is key. We've seen potential ad placements expand and become more streamlined. There's campaign types like performance max and demand gen campaigns now. It's more important than ever to take advantage of all of the options that Google has available to reach your audience. Now, you might not be able to rely solely on search ad placements and could expand your strategies like to shopping ads, local services ads, and more to supplement your search campaigns and your overall account health. Again, you kind of want to be thinking of like the big story here when you're looking at your account. It's so easy. And I've gone through it with so many businesses over the years. It's so easy to get like hung up and hyperfixate on a specific metric or a specific campaign, but that's just not helpful to anyone when you're trying to improve your overall business growth and sales in the long term. Campaign performance is going to fluctuate. So the right account structure can also help you target more effectively and improving your audience targeting as well. So you want to be using tools to hit the right audience, you know, make sure that your ad spend is going towards people who would use the product or service that you're selling. Your PPC goals can be a really good guiding light for your campaign structure and targeting strategy too. The Vice President of Client Success over here at Lookalike You, Steph Scanlon, also added that the more tailored your ads can be for the audience, the more likely they are to convert. So it's just overall better for everyone involved. So you really want to work on fine-tuned targeting as much as you can. And our proprietary technology and our local marketing experts that are here to help you every step of the way always opt for a multi-channel targeting approach that hits everyone in your potential audience. Next, you want to again be focusing on overall ROI. Now, I'm not saying, and I know I'm like keep reiterating this thought of like it's might be one campaign or one metric that's hanging you up, but like it is the whole story. And I know I keep hitting this, but I'm not saying that it's not important to look at your click-through rate and your cost per click and your conversion rate and your cost per lead on individual campaigns on a regular basis. It is. That's how you catch little snafus, little things along the way. Maybe a landing page isn't optimized. That's how you can make those small tweaks as you go. But again, when it comes to, looking at your overall performance, you want to be able to calculate your ROI from your search ads. So it can be easy to get bogged down by one metric, but try to think about how these key Google Ads metrics play into your business's overall bottom line. So, you want to be thinking about how your PPC ROI might also be subject to seasonality. So be ready to shift your strategy as needed throughout the year to maintain an effective, always on approach to your campaigns. It's another common mistake I see from a lot of advertisers out there. And I'm not calling anyone out. And I know there's a lot of seasonal businesses on there. So seasonal businesses, I'm looking at you. I know it's so tempting to just want to pause your campaigns when you feel like it's slow season or this just isn't my time, my month, my quarter, whatever it is, and you need to scale back. Scaling back is fine, but pausing your campaigns overall is just hurting you because a huge thing with search advertising, which I think a lot of advertisers forget, is the campaigns are reliant on historical data to perform. Google makes its decisions on how to bid, when to serve you, and so on based on historical data. So if you're starting and stopping your campaigns all the time, it's really going to throw Google off and you're going to be stuck in this forever learning phase with Google's algorithms and your campaigns are never going to perform how you fully want them to. So while I know it's not always feasible to just dump money into campaigns year round, you want that always on approach so that you can continue to collect historical data and optimize and show Google's machine learning the way to the best performance possible. And one of our final little notes here is just auditing your PPC account regularly. Now, I know not everyone has, totally the bandwidth to do so, and that's okay. Find a reporting and auditing method that works best for you, right? So whether you have time, resources, and bandwidth to do an audit every 2 weeks, once a month, once a quarter, it doesn't matter. But as long as you're holding yourself accountable and going through, a typical checklist like this and seeing, what you can check off and understand and, improve on regularly is really going to help you grow. Now, what I will say too with this is that, remember that learning phase that Google is always going to be opting you into when you make major campaign changes. So we say typically with any change, you want to give a minimum 14 days or 2 weeks to really gauge performance on that. Ideally 30 days to a month. And it could be even longer or less time depending on the change that you're making. But I always say the hardest part of PPC is patience. So if you're making optimizations and you're checking in regularly, you might not see the changes overnight or see the improvements overnight, and that's okay. So the last couple of things I just want us to remember here, when it comes to maximizing your Google Ads ROI, use these benchmarks as a reference. No two Google Ads accounts are the same. You want to use these benchmarks as a guiding light to make informed PPC decisions. And you'll also want to look at the big picture, which I know I keep saying, but even for like the year over year changes or the past 5 years, we know cost per lead overall has gone up for the past 5 years. So if your cost per lead has gone up for the last 5 years, don't think you're being personally victimized by Google. That's just the state of the digital marketing landscape. It has increased. And again, be thinking about how individual metrics by industry can sway. And again, they might fluctuate, and you might have specific situations unique to you that could cause, certain metrics to be totally different in your account than what you're seeing in your industry average. But that's why it's important to benchmark your own results and compare it to those overall industry results as well. So thank you for following along with all of that with me. I know that was a ton of information. Like I've said, even for someone like me that does this as a full-time job all day, every day, it's a lot. It's a lot of data. It's a lot to consider, a lot to think about. So if you have a lot of questions, and I'm seeing a lot of questions coming in from people about specific business types, specific industries, specific problems, if you're ready to, put that to rest and maximize your online ads ROI with a free marketing assessment with an expert at a later time, definitely go ahead and hit yes on that poll. If you have specific questions, it's a really unique experience to just get your questions answered in a real one-on-one setting. I'll only be able to answer as many questions as I can in this last little portion here. So with that being said, I'm going to leave the poll up. So if you've answered the poll, go ahead and sit back and relax. As we switch into the audio portion of the webinar, there's no more slides. I'm just here to answer your questions. So for everyone on this call, if you haven't yet dropped in your questions, go ahead and drop them in now. I'll try and answer as many as I can with our last not even 10 minutes or so here. And I'm seeing a ton of questions come in, so I'll try and cover as much as I can. Let's see. Oh, some folks are asking about, I've seen a lot of this, and this gets asked every year when we do these, is what is cost per lead like equating to? Again, it's basically your CPA, right? So while we call it cost per lead because most businesses consider like a lead form or a call a conversion, it's, what you would consider to be a conversion. So it could be a lead, it could be a form fulfilled, it could be a submit button on something, it could be a phone call, it could be a chat sale, something like that. A lot of folks still asking about the recording and the slides. Just a reminder that a copy of the slides will be in your inbox later today along with the recording, and you can find the recording on YouTube. Folks asking about Google Marketing Live. We are publishing a recap of Google Marketing Live this week, so keep your eyes peeled on the WordStream blog. It might even be already out. Just a little surprise teaser for you all. You heard it here first, but we are covering Google Marketing Live and have resources on that because there were a few announcements in that. I was there yesterday, so I hear you on that one. Let's see. Any other questions here? Some folks are talking about, conversion rate and lead quality. Definitely something to consider too, right? So if you have a low conversion rate, but your lead quality is really high, And again, that's why I mentioned like value tracking on your conversions to understand the value of your leads. Yes, of course, a lower conversion rate is okay, because you're getting higher quality leads, and the less, even though you're getting less conversions, more of them are actually turning into real sales and customers. Some folks asking, okay, Meredith asked, do you have any recommendations on how to measure success from different efforts like SEO efforts helping lower cost per click for ads? Great question. I love to talk about this. And we also help folks do that here at Local IQ. So for example, one thing you can do, just speaking within the specific ad space, I'll get to SEO in a second. But for example, within Google Ads itself, if you're running display ads and you are also running search ads, and obviously we know if we're running display ads, those tend to show a lot more because they're kind of just showing passively as folks surf the web. And because of that, they're not always like showing to people ready to convert, right? They're busy doing other things and they see your ad on the page. But then they go to your search ad and they convert off your search ad later because that display ad planted the seed for them to convert, right? So we call that a view through conversion, and that's something we help folks here at Local IQ measure. But you can measure your view through conversions within your Google Ads account to see how conversions are coming through from other ad types, but they get to your search ads as the final destination. So that's one example. Another thing you can do is, again, just relying more on your first party data, your CRM and your analytics account, or GA, of course, now, to understand, you can like calculate out perhaps like how your SEO is doing, what your paid traffic is doing, how your sources are coming through to your overall website traffic to understand how that could be impacting your cost. Again, a few questions about specific industry types. I definitely recommend just going with the closest possible. And if you have specific industries, someone was calling out, certain types of legal services, biopharma, IT. This is why that poll is up. If you have questions about those specific industries, that's why we have the opportunity for you to get those questions answered, because of course I can't give you real advice if I don't know your unique situation. Some folks are asking if increase in click-through rates could equate to more irrelevant clicks. Not necessarily, because we also saw conversion rates come up, but that was a great question. Some folks asking, Janelle asked, for example, how do you foresee ChatGPT altering search ads or just AI search ads? We obviously know AI overviews is a huge thing on the Google search engine results page now. We do have a ton of information on that. What we're finding is that, ads are still being pulled in, and if anything, maybe potentially some of these AI results, if you're optimizing for them, can help grow your business even more and grow your ads. Again, some folks asking about employment recruitment industry, definitely more of a niche industry, I would say, is why we have that pull up. Again, I did go through the data. Some folks are asking if it's internal Local IQ data or general industry metrics. This is informed from over 16,000 Local IQ campaigns. And this data you can't find anywhere else. It's pretty exclusive. So you guys are part of our exclusive club now. Nonprofits also asking, again, that would be a more specific question here. And we do have some folks asking for more of a breakdown of metrics by industry. That is in the full report that you can find on the WordStream and Local IQ blogs. Great questions here. Some folks asking about specific, wow, it's cool to see that you all are keeping such a close eye on your marketing, that, someone called out, like, I saw a change in my account performance in this past month. Like, what could have Google done that, would cause that? Totally fair. But I would say, honestly, if it's like month to month, you're not going to see a huge difference there. You would have to give it more time to really tell if it was like a platform update versus like a performance update. All great questions here. We're right at time. I wish, as you guys could tell, I live and breathe this stuff. I could talk about it all day, and I wish I could. But thank you all so much for joining. We do these webinars twice a month, so keep your eyes peeled for our next webinar. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.